continuing on that point about evidencing OFSTED curriculum, so how are you sort of linking sort of the principles, and how has it affected your OFSTED inspections?
We've had one OFSTED inspection since Nurture came, and I think OFSTED's a point to show how good we are. It's an opportunity. Shouldn't be scared of it. It's like, come on, bring it on, sort of thing. Let's show how good we do these things. So they came, they watched, they saw how we worked as a unit in year one. That even though the children are away from their main peers there, the lesson was exactly the same, but in a more developmentally appropriate way. And that's all it is just looking at where our children are developmentally and how do we put the learning in there. So no, Ofsted, they gave us a mention. They're really pleased about speech and language. That was what they highlighted, was that speaking and listening. Mm-hmm. Is speaking and listening for children in Nurture, because that's a big part of the teaching is speaking and listening.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, Ofsted are a genuine force for good, and largely in all my experience of Ofsted, they are one of a number of people or groups that have visited our school and appraised or assessed what we do. Now, their criteria can be interpreted in a number of different ways. I have chosen to interpret it in the way we have chosen to interpret it, and overlay the needs of our children across that. We aren't dictated by Ofsted any more than we're dictated by the local authority, any more than we're dictated by other things. As a group of senior leaders at the school, we know what we think is best for our children, and the principles of Nurture have absolutely allowed us to deliver that for our children. So, Nicola said it's nothing to be scared of, it's an opportunity to show off, and actually it was celebrated
really
rightly as a positive thing in the school. It also, if you're talking about the Ofsted criteria in itself, it does show aspects of good teaching and speaking and listening, but it also shows really positive leadership and management. Leadership and management at Nicola's level, leadership and management at my level, at governor level. So, it can only, for us, it's only been a power of good.
So going beyond the school gates, to the families, to parents, I mean, tell me about how has that impacted beyond the school?
I think Nurture's really helped with our parents. We've grown we've grown since we've started the Nurture group with a pastoral support team now, and our links with schools. We've always had quite positive links with our parents anyway, but Nurture's become a safe base, not only for the children, it's become a safe base for the parents of those children within. Often I still have parents whose children are way up the school, and if there's something not going right for their children way up the school, the Nurture room's their first place of port of call.
Which is great for me, because they go and see Nicola before they see me. But that personal, there's still that anxiety of going to the head's office because it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. Whereas the Nurture room itself is just safety, absolute safety for those parents to just either have a cry, a legitimate moan, a non-legitimate moan, any of those things, and Nicola and her team are there to sort of smooth things over and just to listen. We've all been to school, we've all got an opinion on what a good school or a bad school is because we've all been to school, but we all have anxieties about school in different ways, and some of our parents have got genuine anxieties about coming into school and voicing what they feel and don't feel empowered. Nurture, that base, have given them the empowerment to come and speak and be heard. It goes way beyond the school.
It goes way beyond.
Our reputation as a school has been built on what we do with that. We receive children who have heard about our school because their journey in their own school haven't been as positive, and that's a really lovely thing to do. I heard a description of what an outstanding school is once, and if we go back to Ofsted, at Ofsted I've got a criteria of what outstanding is, but for me this description fits it much better. An outstanding school is a school that if taken out of the community is broken because of it, and I genuinely believe our school, if it was taken out of this community, the community would be a worse off place for it, and that for me comes from all of that anecdotal stuff from our parents who just say, you're doing a good job with our children, thank you, we trust you to send them here.
Yeah, definitely, and a lot of our parents came here, so we're part of they came here, their children come here, and we have the grandma. Everybody's involved. We're not isolated at all. Parents are definitely very much involved, and we do that by offering other things as well. So we offer family learning. Loads of things we do.
Yeah, and I think the National Nurturing Schools programme has really allowed us to move from a nurture group with some principles that are starting to filter through the school to a cohesive approach, an all-encompassing approach across the school and beyond. So things like family learning, things like a parent and family support worker, intergenerational learning, family development, where we're not just teaching our non-English speaking parents to speak English, but we're also listening to them about what they want. So computing courses, we do hair braiding, cake decoration, because that is what allows people to come into a school in a safe manner. And once they're in school, once we've got them, and then we can start doing all those things that we know will impact positively on their children's education, like the more academic sides of things, and empowering them to help their children learn. But until we get them physically in this school, we can't do that.
You touched on sort of the governors earlier in this conversation. Talk to me about how you kind of got the governors on board with the strategic nature of Nurture.
I think the governors, certainly the core heart of our governing body at the time, were people that have been associated with the school for a very long time. They are community people. They know the needs of our community, and they shared that feeling that we weren't doing enough to long-term support children when they left our school. So they were on board from that sense. The real tension comes when the finances are not looking great. We're in times of falling budgets, rapidly falling budgets, and how will we be able to justify keeping things going? But our governors were really resolute and said, no, Nurture will be the last thing. Nurture will be the last thing that goes from our budget. We've made cuts, like all schools. We've had to do things smarter and cheaper, but Nurture has maintained its position within that. When we set up the trust, and it was our governors driving the setup of a trust, the bedrock of the trust ethos was that it was built on the nurturing principles of Lawrence Haynes School, and that is where it's gone sort of full circle, and now it's given birth to something completely different. They have always challenged, they want to see results, but the governors themselves come. They come to Nurture Breakfast.
They have Nurture Breakfast. They're very, very supportive. And they want to know, they want to understand what we're doing.
So in the governing body minutes you will see a Nurture report, and more recently a pastoral team support, because the governors have asked for that contact, as much contact as they have with the academic outcomes, or what's happening in sport or things like that. So it becomes one of the pillars of things that we look at and moderate and talk about within those meetings.
And it's never been that Nurture will continue forever. So Nurture continues, as we know, on a basis of that as long as we can make sure it's working, as long as we're proving that it's working, as long as we know that it's the best outcomes for our children and that money's available, then it will continue.
However, there is a bit of a caveat to that, in the sense that I go back to us being the experts of this area in this school. We have said things recently and in the past that this will take 2 or 3 years to embed. So you've got to hang with us. And we're just changing our curriculum at the moment, as many schools are. And I've gone to the governing body and said, you know what? By doing this, we are likely to see a drop in results at the end of Key Stage 2 for the next year or two while it gets up and running. And the governors have got the foresight and the trust in the team to allow that to happen, and Nurture fits in within that.
Hence going for the Nurture quality mark was really important to me, to show that actually we knew it was we know what we're doing here is outstanding, but we, again, to prove that to the governors, to prove it to the community, prove it to our parents, that actually what we do makes a massive difference. So that was a huge piece of work, but well worth it, so that we become actually quality assured.
I think the journey is interesting again, isn't it? Because none of this can happen without wonderful, dedicated staff. And even in, go back to what the governor's doing, even in the interview process now for a job in this school, we've turned that on its head a little bit. We used to do tasks, we used to do, a normal classic interview, we used to observe teaching. But now we're talking very much about the person. We have lunch together, we talk, and we sit, and we, and if actually you can't buy in to our principles and can't hold us in a conversation, just a genuine conversation long enough about our principles, then actually you're not the right person to work at this school yet. We never say never, because obviously everything's a journey, but at this moment we need people that are really buying into what we're doing, and recognising that we are doing things in a slightly different way that isn't typical to education as a whole at the moment. We talked about in the last time we called up about bending the rules. I think we have to bend the rules in a number of different ways to get the right people to suit our children in our context.
Fantastic. Sounds very inspirational. So just on that point, if you could have, Nicola, one really key piece of advice or an inspirational message that you could give to a nurturer who is just starting out their journey and a practitioner who is on the journey. So, a piece of advice perhaps. Okay,
so the person that's just starting out is don't give up. Turn around and say, like he did with the National Nurturing Schools programme, he came and he said, no, we haven't got the money for that, no. You just go away and think about that. So you went away, thought about it, and wrote a whole business case on why this is the best way forward. You just mustn't give up. and start small. Start everything small. And for the one that's already on their journey, is be open-minded. Be open-minded because it's changing. Education's changing all the time, and we have to develop and change with it. So we can't always stick to the rules of what's going on. We have to adapt a little bit along the way.
Fantastic. That sounds great. Thank you both very much for joining me today.
No problem.